Okay, so we're doing the counting game for National Poetry Day. So we because we used Two for Joy for Joyous with the two magpies, we thought we'd work our way through the entire 7 things,
Yeah.
and 6 for gold. And we thought Jane, we thought
Oh,
Patina, we thought.
lovely. I was delighted when you said that.
So Sarah and I were just sort of throwing ideas around because we both sort of came to the same conclusion that this was the right book, and then we go, why are we saying that exactly? And I think it's something to do with the all that glisters isn't gold, and then patina and gleam sort of connects in our brains. But actually, once we started thinking about it, there's a lot about true value in the book, and what appears to be valuable and what is actually valuable. So we thought gold standard. So over to you, Jane.
Something about being asked questions that maybe I hadn't posed myself really, and that was kind of fascinating for me, just to go back and have a look and think about the book in maybe slightly different ways. So I mean, when you said what's the gold that you're trying to pan from this book, I mean that was a really nice question that you posed. And it made me think about 2 or 3 things really. I think sometimes there's a truth about somebody's life that it's hard to define. So whether it's me or anybody else telling a story, sometimes you can tell it straight, and that's one way of doing it. But another way of doing it is by telling it through perhaps other people's stories, um, and that sometimes is more revealing than a straightforward telling of the tale, um, and 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 often more interesting as well. Um, and I think that lives, for me anyway, my life and other people's lives are a bit like an impressionist painting, really. And when you talk about a life, very often it can feel like a bit of a blur, and it sounds like a bit of a blur when um, somebody talks about an experience or talks about a little bit of their life history. And but for me, I need to sort of stand back and just look at what the person has told me, or just shared with me. And so I so an impressionist painting is the way I can think about it, really, that there's quite a strong impression from something which initially might be a bit fuzzy or a bit ill-defined. So that's something about the gold. So the gold comes from those bits that are revealed um, from somebody's life. And then I think in my experience, a person often doesn't know what their real treasure is
Mm.
until they're forced to change. If there's something sudden that happens, and for example, Elsie in the book, through circumstances, she becomes a lot poorer, and so she's forced to think about having a lady's companion to come to live in the house. She wouldn't have normally chosen to do that because it's a real invasion of her space. So the woman that she's invited in, or has by force of circumstance arrived at the door with her child, who's 11 years old, that's although Elsie's agreed to them coming, she really has very mixed feelings about it, and she really doesn't know how this is going to work out. Um, and she's a bit cold to start with and a bit unsure about it. But eventually, of course, they become the closest of friends and the dearest people in her lives, really. But that doesn't there's nothing of that really in the beginning of the book, because she's actually quite cool to start with. And but had that not happened, um these people, these friendships would never have occurred. And that another gold, a nugget of gold for me, the friendships that can occur through changed circumstances. And I think the third thing was something about, I wanted to do in the book, to raise up those very ordinary things in life, the very, the objects and really the kind of ordinary stuff of life that sometimes gets very overlooked. For example, Sydney's potatoes. I mean, they were pure gold for him. You know, that they, you know, he'd been through the war experience, he'd got his tobacconist shop, but what really excited him was his potatoes, you know. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, I think for everybody there's a something that really excites them and makes them feel alive. And
So
and Linda's
panning for potatoes then.
running for potatoes. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's right. And the Blackbird song, which was really you know, spoke to Linda's soul. That was something really important for her. And the crumpets and the hot chocolate that Elsie and Ange had in the grass market, you know, after they, you know, on a freezing day, freezing winter's day, standing and clearing some of Elsie's bric-a-brac off the little stall in the grass market, but they had crumpets and hot chocolate afterwards. And those sort of moments, you know, which are kind of pure gold as well. So that sort of thing is the gold that I was trying to search for in the book, or try to reveal in the book, I think. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you talked about gold standard as well, didn't you? You
Yeah.
talked about which, so you were really kind of, yeah, you're trying to really challenging me, Cherry.
We
And I
we aim to
suppose,
please.
and I suppose the gold standard for me is a wow moment. So gold standard for poetry doesn't often happen, but when it happens, it's like a real charge to my system, really. And I think, wow, that was some poem. And I think it's also very subjective. So what one person's wow moment and piece of gold and real treasure is might leave somebody else quite cold.
Yeah.
So we don't always share these moments together. And I, you know, I can say to somebody, oh, I really love this poem, and they just, you know, may not get it at all in the same way. But yeah, there's you know, there's one or two poems that have really done that for me. And that's lovely, because I don't think every poem can. It's not about aspiring to that in, well, I think maybe we should aspire to be, for every poem to be the best it can be, but not every poem has that wow moment, either
Yeah.
for the writer or for the reader. But there are some, so for me there are some poets like Elizabeth Bishop and Jory Graham, the American poet, who just really have given me those wow moments and those real gold standards to aspire to, that I'm sure I'll never reach. But it gives me that inspiration, that fire in my belly, you know, to try to, I don't know, capture something of those moments, which I find is a real sense of enlightenment. When you reach that, you kind of think, wow, that is an amazing way to say that, you know, to express that. And that, you know, gives me a lot of joy that somebody could have written those sorts of things, really, express themselves in those ways. Yes, so that's that sort of thing. Can I just mention a
Yeah.
poem?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, as I say, probably won't mean a thing to anybody else, but to me, it has it is a wonderful thing, and it's the first poem, Jory Graham's book, Place, her collection, and it's the first poem in the book, called Sundown. And I won't read it, but if I would just urge anybody who's interested just to go to it and again think about an impressionist painting, because it is just a wonderful moment in time. And she talks about the beach and horses and little flies on the beach, and it is a fantastic thing. So that for me is a gold standard in poetry. So to be read at your leisure.
Yeah. Okay.
So anything else? Oh, I think you said, where did the title come from, didn't you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I was cleaning one day, Cherry, which I often do, and I think cleaning a table or a floor or something, and it was partly out of exasperation and partly just kind of a bit of, I don't know, just a bit of um, humor towards myself. Really, I was thinking, gosh, you know, this is and the whole phrase came into my head. This is more patina than gleam. You know, it'll never gleam like,
No,
you know, it'll never be beautiful. But there's a lot of patina here, and I love the word patina anyway because it kind of says so much, really.
it's got
So
a real
that,
feel of authenticity to it,
oh
hasn't
God,
it? I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely,
when you're looking at antique
yeah,
furniture, if it's been
yeah.
over polished, you go, yeah.
I know. It
Whereas
just,
that
oh,
400 years of hand rubbing against
exactly.
arm of chair or whatever,
Oh,
that kind of
oh,
thing, that
yeah, I
patina,
know.
that
And
just
it's
it makes you go, yes, that's real.
a wonderful life, a wonderful life. That's right.
Yeah.
And so um and I was also thinking at the same time about the book or the beginnings of the book or the character of Linda, the lady's companion who arrives in Edinburgh from a northern town in the 60s, and just thinking, oh yeah, that might fit. I wonder if that might fit because she does a heck of a lot of cleaning. I wonder if that might fit. But also it for me it relates a lot to life. It relates a lot to um our lives, really. And I could for me I could kind of extrapolate it to life, um a person's face, you know, wrinkles on the
Yeah.
face, a lovely, lovely all the marks, on the face, and telling of a life. But I suppose all those imperfections, I quite like imperfections, really. I'm not a gleamy, glossy person, as you
No,
know.
me neither.
And so I love the imperfections in life, really, because I think that it's more, for me, it's kind of more real, and I don't really like covering them up that much, really.
Mm,
I know we have to, um, you know, uh, obviously to kind of can't be living in with lots of dust and dirt around. Although I did have a friend who never dusted, who was proud of that. But nevertheless, I think there's something about the imperfections in life that
mm.
are ultimately more fascinating than the trying to be perfect,
Yeah.
which, yeah, I think is just
Yes. It
unrealistic
comes back to authenticity again, doesn't it?
yes, that's right, and unhealthy ultimately. So
Yeah.
yes, that's right. Having an authentic self, and just which the characters in the book, I feel, did in
They all
ways that they
achieve
wouldn't.
it, but
Yes, that's right. In ways that they wouldn't have said it in that way ever. But that's, I think, they, became more real to themselves and to each other, and ultimately found some treasure there.